Hello, my name is Heather Denis, and I am doing my research paper on the effect of prolonged sitting on our health and posture. As you can see, I've kind of got some pictures right here how sitting all day is slowly killing you, and then the idea of what is poor posture and what is correct posture, just to kind of give you an idea about what is in store. So, what is the effect of prolonged sitting on our health and posture? There's a few different things that I'm going to be touching on. One is what are the chronic diseases and chronic pain that is involved with prolonged sitting on our health, and then another piece of it will be on our posture. How does sitting posture and the ergonomics of the chair design affect our posture and health? So, just a little bit of an intro. Sitting for prolonged periods increases risk for heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and death, even among people who exercise regularly. That was something that surprised me, that even if you exercise regularly, sitting for long periods of time can still increase the risks for these things. So, unfortunately, more than half of the average person's waking life involves sedentary activity, such as watching television, working at a computer, commuting. We're constantly on our cell phones, texting. So I felt like this was a really great topic to look further into because sitting should become a common health concern. On a positive note, there is research that shows improvements that can be made on our sitting time. You can use sit-stand workstations and improve your physical activity time just by getting up and breaking up that sitting time that you have. Also, educating ourselves on postural awareness. It's not only just the sitting time, but it's how we use ourselves while we are sitting. But, however, is it possible to change our sedentary lifestyles and prolonged sitting habits the more we become involved into a more advanced technological age and its demands? And does prolonged sitting really have an effect and impact on our health and posture? We shall find out. Sitting as a hazard. We don't normally think of sitting as a hazard. In fact, we don't normally think sitting is a big deal at all. It's just something that we do, and we don't really think one way or another. We notice it more as discomfort if we're sitting for long periods of time, or like our neck hurts, or our back hurts a little bit, or maybe our bottom hurts or something like that, or we feel stiff. So we don't really consider sitting a hazard, which is why this is important to start to bring to life that sitting can be a hazard and is a common health problem. So by understanding some of the injuries due to sitting as a hazard and making its presence known, we can begin to connect back pain to prolonged sitting because of the horizontal seat. So what does that mean? The horizontal seat means that our thighs are horizontal and parallel to the floor. And when our thighs are parallel to the floor, it changes the structure of our spine, and we have to end up flattening our back or hunching our shoulders over, and this causes our posture to be impaired, or we have to work a lot harder. Seat surfaces can also play a role into this. A lot of times we have bucket seats, and they push us back into our chair, and we have a really rounded back, so that's that flattened back that I'm talking about. So that's why, basically, the conventions underlying seat design need to be reassessed. So using a horizontal seat rather than one that allows the thighs to adopt a significantly downward slope, if you don't have that, it can present a hazard. And that's something that not very many people are aware of. And it isn't until you actually try sitting in one of these chairs where your hips are higher than your knees, which we don't actually get that a lot of times. A lot of times we're kind of squinched back in our chair, or we're sitting on those horizontal seats, or we're in the cushions of the couch that kind of let us sink back. And then when we also are sitting in these horizontal seats, the longer the person stays in the seat, the more the consequences increase. So maintenance of a posture for long periods, such as months or years, causes the body to distort, and then the pain and damage to the system can become chronic. So while we may not be thinking it's a big deal right now, we're not even thinking of sitting as a hazard, it can become a really big issue later on down the road. So the conclusion to be drawn is that the horizontal seat is a major contributor to the high levels of back problems in our society. Ta-da! However, if we can start to look at ergonomics and what the chair does to us, and how posture really is sitting posture really is affected, we can start to make changes that are better for ourselves. So research shows that lumbar supports, armrests, seat back inclination, freedom to move, freedom to cross the knees or ankles, adjustable heights of chairs, curved anterior seat bottom can reduce pressure on the popliteal area, and minimal anterior translation and or flexion of the head have been shown to reduce sitting stress and to be associated with higher comfort ratings. So that's a lot there. If you can see this first picture of the chair, the gray chair, this is one where you would be sitting way back in the chair. Your feet would not be on the ground unless you've got long legs, and you'd have that flattened back. In the second picture, you can really see that this person, their hips are above their knees, and that they have a nice long lengthened back, and that their head is straight up and down. So that forward head position happens when you're sitting in the first chair, because then you have to either, look at the TV, look at your phone, look at the computer, whatever you're going to be doing. So it is really important to think of that postural control is a fundamental but complex motor function, which is involved in nearly every motor task. Makes sense. So the statement continues to support how complex and ever important the idea of posture is, that it's a key element in reducing the chronic issues with prolonged sitting. So not only do we want to look at the chair we're sitting in, we also want to look at our posture while we're sitting. So just to continue with that forward head posture, if you look at the skeleton of a person sitting at their computer, this is something that we think is normal nowadays, but this is actually not normal. This is not the natural posture that we want to have. And the same thing, kind of like that first chair, the gray chair, gave you an example of a picture of this right here, where the guy is kind of scooped back and leaning against the back of the chair, and his pelvis is really rounded and his lower back is really rounded. And then in the second, this B picture right here, that's that forward head posture that's not very good for you, that you can see that he has as well, but it shows in this picture. Where your head should be is on the dotted line, which is not very comfortable either, but we bring our heads forward, and that also puts stress on our spine as well. I came across a really interesting study and article, and I wanted to add it in here because we have a lot of traditional methods of trying to improve ourselves, but the alternative approach to posture is much more interesting. Using this system, which is called the Alexander Technique, it's a mind and body integration system in which an Alexander Technique teacher or practitioner educates their student in the principles of the Alexander Technique. They do this by re-educating the psychophysical self and showing them what the principles of the Alexander Technique are. In order to understand how the chair impedes our use of the self, our posture, this article uses the scientific basis of the Alexander Technique to show how the chair interferes with the natural positioning of the head, neck, and spine. So we have these natural positions of our head, neck, spine, our limbs, and we tend to interfere with those on a daily basis, and the chair is definitely one that interferes with that, among other things. So the basic principle of this article is that chairs do not only weaken, but they also distort our bodies. And just as you can see with these two pictures right here, we're kind of slumping into the chair when we don't really need to, and we shouldn't. We should know this is not good for our spine. It's not good for our head or our neck. Anytime you take your head off the axis of the spine, you put undue pressure on your spine. The founder of the Alexander Technique is F. Matthias Alexander, and he said something that was really great. It's not the furniture, it is how you are using yourself. So if we can combine this approach and think about and look at the ergonomics of the chair, we can really make leaps and bounds into the progress of prolonged sitting. On a more traditional note, I wanted to go over the chronic diseases or the chronic issues and health problems that we have concerning prolonged sitting. One of them is weight gain and body mass index. The survey that was done in this particular study supported that sitting time has an invariable effect on our health, but specifically in men with body mass index. And with the advancements in technology, work has become less strenuous. We're definitely sitting more. The average person sits at least 8 hours a day. I think what is recommended is about 90 minutes, and that's very tough. So this being said, the results of the study was that the longer sitting times was significantly associated with higher BMI for the overall sample, and the findings provide continuing support for reducing workplace sitting time for the purpose of reducing the risk of weight gain and related health conditions. And another interesting note, I wanted to look at more on a cellular level how this affects us. And the purpose of this article and study was designed to test the effects of prolonged sitting on brachial artery and superficial femoral artery, and if they were similar or not, in retrospect with prolonged sitting. So as I said, the average American adult has a sitting time of 8 hours a day, and the sitting posture creates a unique anatomical position. So you have when you're sitting, your knees are bent and your hips are flexed. So this study's purpose was to look at the arteries in the femoral and popliteal region and how being in a seated position can affect viscosity, blood pressure, and a decrease in arterial shear rates. So what they found was, after looking at the subjects after 3 hours of sitting, they looked at the lower extremity superficial femoral artery function, and they used it by measuring by a flow-mediated dilation, which is also a good predictor of cardiovascular disease. And overall, the results came to the conclusion that longer sitting time affected the pressure on the superficial femoral artery. Also discovered that 3 hours of prolonged sitting decreased mean and integrated shear rates in that artery and also impaired endothelial function. So I just felt it was important to bring about that we are really being affected by being still and not moving and sitting for long periods of time, that it can affect us on a cellular level. This is a really big one. One of the most common deaths in America is cardiovascular death. And I wanted to touch a little bit on this since it's very important. So overall, the results of this study suggested that a higher amount of total daily sitting time is associated with a greater risk of myocardial infarction incidence and mortality from all causes. So not only myocardial infarction, but mortality. In relation to chronic heart disease incidence, the results were less clear, and they're going to have to do more research on that. So in particular, results showed a high risk for participants who were sitting for long hours and who were also physically inactive in the leisure time as well. So thus, studies on the interplay between sitting time and physical activity in other domains represent an important area for future research. This is a pretty serious condition, and the more that we sit, the more that we're at risk for this type of problem. So these findings provide a starting point for identifying a threshold on which to base clinical and public health recommendations for overall sitting time, in addition to physical activity guidelines. This is something that I just wanted to touch on as well, that you have your head, neck, lungs, heart, arms, stomach, back, legs, feet. And just to say a few of them, you are twice as likely to develop a pulmonary embolism or blood clot if you sit most of the day. Sitting for long periods of time places a high amount of pressure on the spine and can result in the compression of the spinal discs. And because the muscles are tight from pressure, sudden movements can lead to injury. Fluid collects in the legs while we are sitting, and standing up and walking helps pump it through our body. So these are just a few things that you can look at to see like how much prolonged sitting can really harm us. Now, as we just talked about, a few of the things that can harm us, our posture, the chair, and chronic diseases, such as weight gain or cardiovascular, myocardial infarction, we want to figure what can we do to find a solution. So some of the studies that I found, there were passive and active solutions. One of the passive solutions was a passive prompt was sent to the worker's computer, and anytime they saw this passive prompt, it would prompt them to get out of their chair and to do some type of exercise for a few minutes. So during a 13-week period, participants were given a passive prompt delivered via their desktop that required them to stand up and engage in a physical activity, and the result was clear. Calories were increased and the sitting time was decreased, and therefore their prolonged sitting time was decreased, and the mood was lightened. The other one that I'd really like to talk about was called the Take a Stand Project, because not only did it prompt you to get up, it also they installed a sit-stand device that was very effective at increasing non-sitting time, reducing upper back and neck pain, and improving mood states. So the Take a Stand Project reduced time by 224% with 66 minutes per day, and reduced the upper and back neck pain by 54%. So that's really good to know that looking at this picture here, not only can you can also stand, but you can also go back to sitting and go in between the two. And then furthermore, the removal of the sit-stand device largely negated all observed improvements within a 2-week period. So it's very important to keep us active. All right, so why is all this important? Oh dear. Sorry. Okay, so why is this important to know? The basic physiological concepts of this research paper show the negative effects of prolonged sitting that they have on the various aspects of the human body, such as posture, overall health, chronic diseases, chronic pain, and mortality. Not only that, but the concept of the horizontal chair and the awareness of our posture are brought into light by various and numerous studies, and all had research stating prolonged sitting affects our health and posture in specific ways. It brought about the fact that the chairs we also use are a factor and can cause issues as well into our sitting habits and posture. And the rest of the research gives specific examples of blood pressure, weight gain, low back pain, artery shear pressure, and cardiovascular health, and that all these are related and affected by prolonged sitting. So these measures are now being brought to our attention and are also helping us to understand the problem, work at ideas and solutions to the problem. So until we can actually know that there's a problem, we will not know how to fix it. So now that we're that prolonged sitting and the hazard of prolonged sitting is being brought to light, we can start to actually do something about it. So, as I said, one cannot fix a problem or issue if one does not know it exists. So the overall strengths of the literature is that it had positive results and showed the negative impact of prolonged sitting and its hazards in various health-related ways. The overall contributions of the literature are essentially positive and contribute to an epidemic that is taking over worldwide. The more that we can shed light and bring this research to the public and how much we can easily begin to take charge of our health in regard to prolonged sitting is extremely important. There were a few things that I did realize, but I did not realize how much prolonged sitting can really affect our health. And now that I know this, I want to spread the word and help everybody else know this as well. Thank you.